Hey kids, you are watching the Shit Talking Podcast or listening to the Shit Talking Podcast. We are live tonight. Robin and I. Say hi, Robin.
Hi, everyone.
So, how have you been, Robin? It's been like a whole week.
I I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how we went a whole. Well, technically, we didn't really go a whole week. There was some texting,
That's right.
but it's been a whole week since we've been here with our listeners. So, it's been a good week. It's been busy. It's been crazy, and I guess the topic that we have tonight is a timely one because it's one of those things where I'm thinking a lot about, all the stuff going on in life and how I might have done things differently. I don't know.
Well, don't fall down that rabbit hole. So, this is our third episode. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Feels like we're pros already.
Speak
And
for yourself. I don't really feel like a pro yet. I kind of just feel like I'm just on here just talking, and for some reason people are listening, and that's great. Yeah, that's
we're doing.
exactly
We're
what it is.
talking. So our topic tonight, if you didn't see our promos that we've been running, is Dear 18-year-old Self. So we are going to look back on our lives and think about what we may have told our 18-year-old selves. And maybe if there's any 18-year-olds listening, maybe they could learn something from that. Or they probably think we're just old ladies and we don't know what the hell we're talking about. So I don't know. I mean, when you look back on your past and think about your 20s.
Yep.
I mean, how do you overall think about yourself? Do you think that you were a savvy, responsible woman, or do you think you were like a hot mess?
I don't think that I was a hot mess. In fact, I think that maybe I was too responsible. Like, I think that if I could go back, because now, like, we're older. I'm not going to say like we're old fogies, but we're kind of old fogies. Like, you're a little older, you go to work, you do responsible things, you pay your bills on time. So like,
maybe
for the most part, but I think that a lot of times, when I think back to, when I was in college and when things were, should have been so carefree, I don't know that I was carefree enough. Like I think that I kind of wish I would have enjoyed being young. Not that I'm not young now. I mean, we're both still relatively young, but I think that the older you get, I'm about to have a big birthday. I'm about to turn 40 this month. And, I kind of think back, I'm like, wow, I'm 40. I remember when my parents were 40. And then I think back to when I'm young and I go like, maybe I should have like gone to more parties, or maybe I should have, drank more, or like, I don't know, like tried some drugs. I've never done cocaine. Maybe I should have done some cocaine. I don't know. I can't do cocaine now. Like, it's too late. So
well, you could, but I'm really like, why couldn't you? I mean, you could.
Who picks up a coke habit at 40? Like, that's not the time to do it.
Well, you don't want to have a habit. You said try.
to be clear, right?
Okay.
But like, you just think about all the things you wouldn't do now because you're kind of like, I've aged out of that experimentation phase.
Yeah, but the reason you wouldn't do it is because you're smarter now. When you were 18, you were dumb. That was why you would have done that stupid shit.
You're right. And to be fair, I want to be really, really clear. I am not endorsing drug use.
No, neither am I.
By any stretch. But I was having a conversation with a couple of friends of mine. One is a little bit younger than me. One's a little bit older than me. And like, we were kind of just sitting and talking shit as we do. Right. And they're just talking about their childhood. And they're like, I remember that time, like, I did mushrooms and this is what happened. I remember I did this. I remember I did that. And they're both like functioning adults, like professionals, parents, like functioning adults. And literally I'm just sitting here like, I cannot contribute to this conversation at all because I've done nothing. I haven't tried anything because when I was younger, I think I was very afraid of going down the rabbit hole of being a crackhead. And I think it's a valid fear.
Maybe you would have liked it too much. I mean, you don't know how you would have turned out if you had done those things. I mean, what if you did like it too much? You might be living in a box under a bridge right now, Rob, and we would not have this show.
That's true.
You don't know what turn your life would have taken. That's the scary thing about drugs for me, is that, yeah, I would love to try it, see what it feels like. but I'm afraid that I would be one of the people that just likes it too much, maybe has a propensity for addiction because I have family members that have addiction. And I was always afraid that that would just be something that I couldn't control and it would completely run and destroy my life. So I don't know that you missed out on anything.
I don't think that I did. I know that I'm very afraid of drugs in general. Like even if I have a surgery or something and they give me like Percocet, um, I will let myself take the Percocet for exactly a week. And I don't care how much pain I'm in. I stop taking it after, like,
Well,
I'm like,
that's
nope,
smart.
I'm done. I'm done. Like, I'll just do aspirin. I'll just do, like whatever it is. So I don't know that I would tell my 18-year-old self to go take drugs, but I do think I would tell my 18-year-old self, like, maybe take some more risks that aren't as life altering as drugs, for example, because that can be very life altering, but maybe take some more risks that like you wouldn't take when you're older.
Well, do you think that maybe you had an issue with being responsible? Like, was that important to you?
I do think that I had an issue with maybe being responsible. Like I did want to be responsible, but I feel like when I think back to college, even, I had a really good time. I was very safe. Like I don't think I'd want to do anything dangerous that would get myself in trouble, but I do think it would be kind of cool if I could look back and go like, wow, I did some crazy shit in college. And I can't really say that. I'm like, I went to some
Really?
parties, I did some drinking, I joined a sorority, like, but I don't look back at college like, oof, there's a lot I couldn't like tell my niece and nephew because, hey, Derek, by the way, and if I did crazy stuff, Derek's my brother. If I did tell my niece and nephew, I would edit out all the bad parts. But like I want to be able to say like, hey, like mama has lived. And I kind of feel like, did I really? Like did I take
Well,
all the risks?
I think the issue is, do you feel like you missed out on something? And it sounds like you do.
Hmm.
So, what could we do that could make you, maybe take advantages of some things now in your life where you would feel like you were really living life to the fullest?
Well, I think you have to define living life to the fullest. Like it means something different to different people. So, for me, what makes me enjoy my life is traveling, which nobody can really do right now. But, but like I enjoy traveling. I enjoy, experiencing new things. I enjoy eating new foods, like, wah, wah, wah. Boring, boring, boring. But like, there's like really nothing I can say. If I did this, I would feel like my life is super fulfilled. Where is there a naked bonfire? Okay, let's go with Derek. What if there was a naked bonfire? I would never go to a naked bonfire, but if I were 20, then like yes, I would say, hey, I'm 20. Let's go to a naked bonfire. Why not? Like, let's go skinny dipping. I've never been skinny dipping in life. I'm 40 years old. I've never jumped into a lake with no clothes on or a
Well,
pool
well,
or
that
no.
could be arranged. I
No,
mean,
it could be. It
I'm
could
trying
be.
to remember if I actually went skinny dipping. I don't think I was totally naked. I think I still had my underwear on.
Then that it doesn't count. It doesn't count.
Um,
So I feel like, first of all, Derek, who's inviting us to naked bonfires, Derek is married to my sister, who I'm sure would not want either of us at a naked bonfire to be whatever, whatever.
might be a little weird. Might
It
be
would
a
be a
little
little weird.
awkward.
Like, hey, I invited your sister and some of her friends, and we're all just gonna like sit around. Like, I think that would be like a legitimate problem.
Well, I'm not exactly feeling so great about my body right now, so I don't think that I would want to go skinny dipping unless I was totally alone or with my boyfriend. That would be okay. But
Why are you not feeling good about your body right now? See, that's another thing. I think about my 18-year-old self and all the body issues, and I'm too this, and I'm too fat, and I'm too, like I kind of wish I didn't worry about it so much. Or maybe I should
yeah.
have worried about it more because I ended up having gastric surgery as an adult. So maybe I should have worried about my body a little bit more as, as a teenager, and I would not have had to have surgery. But I don't know. Like you spend so much time worrying about the most insignificant crap when you're a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to that. Like, as usual, we go off on these tangents, but it's sort of related.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. I would say honestly that if I compare how my body image has changed over time, I generally feel better about my body now than and more comfortable with myself than I did when I was 18, which is kind of funny because I was probably at least 25 pounds lighter. But for some reason, I just feel more comfortable in my own skin right now in general. I mean,
Mhm.
right now, after COVID and everything, I've gained a little bit of weight. So I'm conscious of that and working to lose that weight. But that's a temporary problem. But overall, I do think that I look better. I carry myself better. I'm more confident than I was when I was 18. I was very self-conscious about my body then, which I think a lot
Well,
of girls are.
well, you do a lot of stuff. Like I've seen you like pounding tires with sledgehammers and doing like some really legitimate working out. Like, did you do that when you were 18? Because I know
No.
I didn't, like, I wasn't really at all conscientious about, you know, I'm not going to say fitness because it makes me sound like, oh, like I'm some sort of gym rat. But like, I do think about, let me do some cardio. Let me do like, let me get moving. Whereas at, 18, I was kind of like, let me go and get a cheesesteak. Like I wasn't as
Yeah.
worried about, did I work out? Am I trying to make my body healthy? So maybe that's why you're more comfortable in your own skin.
I think after a while, you just don't care anymore. You just realize that nobody's really scrutinizing you the way that you think they are,
That's
you
true.
know, um, and they don't care. People just don't care. And then after a while, you realize, why do I even care so much what other people think? Why does it matter to me if I have a perfect body and, people can see that? I can show that off. I mean, it's nice, right?
Yeah.
But I just realized that of all the things there are to worry about and focus attention on, that's just not the thing that's high on my list anymore. I think when you're 18 and young like that, you care so much more about what people think of you and
Mm.
being attractive and perfect and popular and whatever. I don't know. Am I making any sense here?
Yeah, but I think that that all ties into one of the things that I think I would tell my 18-year-old self. I think back, to those days and I'm kind of like, I was so focused on boys. You know what I mean? Like it was so, I like this guy. Does this guy like me? And maybe I should go talk to him, or maybe I shouldn't, or how can I get his attention? Or even when you go out, it's all about like, well, maybe I need to meet someone. And like I think I spent a lot of energy um on boys. And now that I'm like, about to be 40, I'm kind of like, you know, boys aren't really that special. Like they are special, but it's not something that should take up so much of your time and attention. And I could have been focusing on other things. And I think that comes back to the body image and am I attractive and what do I look like? Because you want to get the attention of the opposite sex or the same
Yeah.
sex, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Whoever you're trying to attract, that's who you're trying to get the attention of. And I don't think that it's just as important in life as we made it out to be when we were
Well,
younger.
I just want to remind you who runs the world.
Girls.
Mhm. Yep. Well, you said something interesting on my podcast Wake Up Call when I interviewed you.
Mm-hmm.
When I had asked you, I forget the specific question, but I had asked you like if you had any regrets or something to that effect. Do you remember what you said?
I do remember what I said. And
What'd you
welcome
say?
to half of my family that's on the chat right now. Hello,
Oh
family.
no. Okay, we
I
don't have
said, but I said, if I were to go back as my younger self, like I would have had a lot more sex, because I think I was so conscious of like, I can't be a slut. And I know how you feel about that word,
Yeah.
but I think that you think so much of like, I can't do that. And not that I was a prude, but you were just so conscious of like, I can't do that because I am a good girl and I'm going to do good girl stuff. And, that's just what I'm going to do. And I think that when I was younger and I probably had more freedom to do those things, I really didn't because I was so worried about what the perception would be. And as you said, like when you get older, you're a little bit more comfortable in your skin and you care less about what people think. That I would have told my 18-year-old self, like, who cares what people think? Like, I remember the girls in college that we looked at them and we thought that they were kind of trashy. We're like, oh my God, she's so slutty. I don't remember them now. They're probably out somewhere living their best life, doing, having great jobs, having great houses, having great husbands. And who cares if I was judging them in college? Like what did that really do to impact their lives in the long run? Because I was being McJudgy.
Well,
Like who cares?
I think it would be interesting to explore, maybe not necessarily on this podcast, but if you want to, I'm down to explore why you felt that way. Like, why did you think that they were, whatever, irresponsible or slutty or whatever the case may be?
Probably because we were sleeping with all the guys that I wanted to sleep with, but I was too much of a punk to do it. So really it was hate. Like you're just being jealous. It's not really judgment to me. I think it's jealousy because there were these like women that were just out doing what they wanted to do.
But why
And
couldn't you do it? Like, what was it in your brain? Like, were you hearing your parents' voices, or, where was this coming from? This judgment in your head that it wasn't okay to do those things.
well, don't you think it's a little bit societal? Like, don't you think society is telling us like, well, there are ladies and there are non-ladies? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but
And you always want to be a lady. You don't want to.
well, there's always, but then there are people who know that, but they do it anyway.
And that's so badass. That's what I'm saying. Like, I would have liked to have, a part of my level of badass now where I don't care so much. Not that I'm out sleeping with people. Hello, boyfriend. I'm not out sleeping with people. But I'm not saying that, but like I don't care as much if people are talking about me or people have a perception of me, or if someone says like, oh, she's a horrible attorney. Okay, fine. If that's how you feel. If you say, well, she's a horrible person. Okay, if that's how you feel. Like the people that really know me know I'm not a horrible person. Or if somebody comes up to me and says like, oh, well, I heard that you're out sleeping with people, which I have been accused of. I've been accused of sleeping with a lot of clients and a lot of adversaries.
Yeah.
And I wish I was living that good life that everybody thinks I'm out living. I am not, but I don't really care if that's what you're saying. Like, it doesn't matter to me. It's funny. But I think at 18, I would have been mortified if someone came up and accused me of having an inappropriate relationship with an adversary. I've actually been accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a judge too, which was odd. Like, he's not even a joke, but I don't know. Maybe I was just good at my job and they're like, you must be sleeping with the judge to get such a favorable result. But
Yes.
like 18, I would have been mortified. I would have been, oh my God, I can't believe they're saying these things about me. I cannot believe that that somebody actually put that in writing to, the presiding judge of what they thought I was doing. But it's like, now I'm kind of like, whatever.
Well, do you think that, and was my experience. When I look back, I don't think that I really had a good sense of who I was when I was 18. I mean, I think most people probably don't, but I'm not going to speak for other people. Looking back, I don't think that I really knew, who I was. What were my values? I mean, I kind of had like some idea what my values were. Like, I wasn't going to kill anybody. I've always been a pretty honest person. I don't make up stories. I've been loyal to my friends and my family, but I think it kind of stopped there. Like, I didn't like, who am I? Am I that person who's a lady and is always going to be proper? Is that very important to me? Or, is it okay with me to be slutty? I don't know. I guess I was somewhere in between. And I did kind of struggle with that, like that women are expected to act a certain way. And,
Yeah.
but I would question that, like, but why though? Why?
Mhm.
Why do we have to do that? Who is it hurting if we live the way we really want to? So, my question for you then is, do you think that maybe you were uncomfortable with that when you were 18 because you didn't know who you were exactly and you were kind of figuring that out?
I think I still don't know exactly who I am. I think that we're ever evolving. Like I think I know who I am right now, in this moment, but tomorrow I could wake up and say, you know what, I want to do something completely different, and I want to have a different focus, and different things are important to me. But at 18, I had no idea. I don't know. Does any 18-year-old really know who they are? Like, at what point do you really think, if you were to put like an age on it, Christina, what point do you think you really know who you are? Like, at what age you kind of like, nope, I think I have an idea.
I
Because I don't
don't
think
know.
18 is it.
I don't know if it's a magical age. I would say probably I from what I've observed too of my friends, I would say, somewhere in your 30s, like mid 30s, I think you start to get a better sense of what you're about. What is really important to you. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I'm trying to define it, but it's actually really hard to define. I think you have certain core values, but that don't change. I think they're fixed. Like, you're either going to murder the type of person who would murder somebody or you wouldn't. But I think over time, your priorities shift. And, the kind of things you would put up with from a boyfriend or even a friend or a job, those things I think change definitely as you mature and you get into your 30s and 40s. Because there were times I look back where I had a boss, more than one boss, that would talk to me in such an incredibly disrespectful way,
Yeah.
almost abusive. And I didn't really stand up to them. And that would never happen now. That
Well,
would
I
just
think
never
of
happen.
I think of things like that where, times, and I'm not going to call them pivotal, but there are
Mhm.
definitely things that I can think about as I was growing up, or even as a young adult, that how I handled it was so not how I would have handled it right
Yeah.
now, because of maybe a lack of security. Maybe, I didn't really know who I was. I didn't really, but I can think back. I was actually in law school, and I can think back to the situation where I had a job. It was a part-time job while I was in law school. And I was legitimately sexually harassed by my boss. Like, legitimate. It wasn't like one of those, like, is this harassment? Like, is this a weird joke? Or is it, like, literally said, I need you to stay late from work, got me in a room, tried to push me against a wall, and tried to kiss me. Like,
Oh my God.
legit, like, assault. And I was in law school. And you would think, like, in law school, I'd be like, this is what I'm going to do, and this is injustice, and I'm going to report him. I didn't. I just quit. I just quit.
Well, but that might have been the most appropriate reaction, at the time for you. At least you didn't hang around and tolerate it.
Right. I didn't. But I was kind of more looking at it as like, do I
Yeah.
really need this job? Like, I'm not making that much money here
No, I think that
working
was
on the
smart.
weekend. And the reality was, I got the job because it was an easy job. Like, it was one of those jobs you could kind of just sit and read the whole time. And then if someone comes in, you do something. If the phone rings, it was kind of reception sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think now at, 39 going on 40, I would have been like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, it would have been such a different
Yeah.
reaction now than it was, in my 20s. And I think that's why I'm so excited to turn 40, because in my head, I'm like, ooh, 40 is like, what kind of badass am I going to be in this decade? Because I know, like, how you grew in 30, and now I'm about to
Yeah.
turn 40, and it's kind of exciting of like, what is 40 going to bring? Because you're such a different person than you are at 20. And it's funny. I don't know. I'm looking through the chat, and some people are saying they did know who they were at 18. I mean, good for you. I don't know. I don't know if I think that you can know who you are at 18, or even 20, or even 40. I don't know. Do you feel like you know who you are, like, definitively right now?
I think I do. And the reason I say that is because I feel like I know how to handle myself now. I feel like I recognize when I'm in a situation that I don't want to be in. I accept it. I extricate myself from it and I don't apologize for it. I'm not there to please anybody else. I don't owe anybody else anything. And I'm doing me. And I don't mean to say that I'm selfish or, I don't care about other people, but I think that I used to do a lot of things and accept a lot of situations that really were contrary to my interests just because I couldn't say no or because I didn't know how to assert myself, which I know a lot of people find hard to believe. But I didn't know how to handle the situation. And I think part of that is just maturity. But I've learned to respect myself more, that if there's somebody that I just don't enjoy spending time with, or there's things I just don't want to do because I don't think they add any value to my life, I'm not doing them. And I'm not apologizing for that. I think I call those boundaries.
Yeah.
Those are, I think you get better at establishing boundaries and actually knowing where your boundaries are. I think, at least for me, when I was young, and I'm not sure that I knew where my boundaries were.
Maybe that's more of what it is that when you're younger, you haven't yet really tested enough of life to really know where the boundaries are, to say, this is a hard boundary for me and I'm not allowing anybody to cross that. And younger, you might think it's a boundary, but you say, okay, I'm going to let somebody cross it and see what happens and see how it feels. Whereas now you're like, nope, you're not doing that.
Yeah, I'm not going to suffer through this. I'm not going to suffer fools anymore.
No. So, I mean, I think for me, so far, I've told my 18-year-old self to do drugs and have sex, which I don't think is really the takeaway I want from this. But like, what about you, Christina? Like, is there something that if you could like just go back and if there was a solid thing that you could say, I would want to tell my 18-year-old self this, what would it be?
I would definitely tell myself, do what feels authentic to you. Just do the things and, live the life that you really want to live, that's calling to you. And don't worry so much about getting it right. I was concerned about being responsible. I'm saying that in air quotes, whatever that means.
Right.
And, making all of the right decisions, because I thought that all those decisions that I was making then were going to impact me so greatly in the future. And, I think they do in some ways, but in a lot of ways they don't. I mean,
but do you really know that? Because you've made those responsible decisions and you've turned out well. You know what I mean? Like you are successful, you are happy, you're comfortable in your skin. You're all of these things that people would want to be. And maybe that was a result of you making responsible choices when you were younger. Just the same way that where I am now is, not living under a bridge because I'm a crackhead. That was as a result of some choices I made as a child. We all live with the choices that we've made. So maybe if I were out having all sorts of sex, I would have had 4 kids by now, and I could have never gone to law school because I just would not have been able to do that and support my kids. Like, I don't know.
Well, I think that, whatever we could do, we could go back and tell ourselves, the fact is you're young. And that's why there's that saying that youth is wasted on the young, because you're still learning. You're learning about yourself. You're learning about the world. And another thing that I thought of as we're talking about this is you're also recently sort of distanced somewhat from your parents, especially if you're not living with them. If you go to college and you're living on campus, especially if you go to another state, out of state school. So it's kind of the first time in your life that you don't have your parents, in your face, imposing their values on you. And that's not to say that their values are bad or wrong,
Right.
but they're your parents' values. And your parents' values aren't necessarily your values.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I'm not talking about lying and stealing and those basic kinds of things, but I'm talking about, you know, how important is money to you? How important is
Mm.
saving to you? Well, we've talked about that issue before. You know,
I
how
would definitely tell my 18-year-old self that. Save
yeah.
more. You know, I did actually kind of throw out to some people knowing that we were going to do this topic on social media. And I said, hey, like, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? And I got two that were interesting. One is very specific, and I kind of goes to what you're saying about money. Is one person said, I would have told myself, do not open that credit card in the student center.
Ah,
When I went away to college, do not open that credit card because you do not know how to use it responsibly. Um, so I think finances are kind of a thing. I had no idea at 18 the importance of credit. I don't think like I think if you said to me, "What's your credit score or how is that important in your life?" I would have been like, I don't know the words you're saying. I know that I am going to get this credit card and I'm going to use the credit card basically to buy booze and Chinese food and I'm not going to worry about the fact that they're going to expect payment every month. I'm not going to worry about that part.
well, I made that mistake too, and that was only like a few years ago, but I'm exaggerating slightly, but you know what? But those are lessons that you have to learn. I mean, don't confuse the question, you know, don't confuse making mistakes with, you know, giving your old self some advice so that you could live more comfortably or live life more fully at that time. I mean, that's what I think of when I think, what would I tell my younger self? I would tell her, stop worrying so damn much.
Yeah.
You know, everything's going to be fine. You know, live your life, enjoy every day, do the things that you want to do. Stop worrying so much. Everything will be fine.
And I think that if you are making mistakes, as oxymoronic as this is going to sound, if you are making mistakes responsibly, then it's okay. You know, like if you get yourself into some credit card debt in college, which how much debt could you really get into in college? They're not really giving you $20,000 credit lines in the student center. But if you get into some debt and you have to figure out how to carve your way out of that debt, you know, it is a lesson and it's not necessarily life altering. Um, if you decide that you want to sleep with more people, do it responsibly. You know, have practice safe sex, use birth control, wear a condom. Like, but if that's what you want to do to make you happy and it's a mistake that's, you know, I can't get my air quotes in the camera. It's a mistake that you can make safely. Then why not make it? You know, I think that's very different than saying, you know, I wish I would have smoked some crack. No, you don't. You don't wish that. But if you're saying, you know, I wish I would have taken some risks that I could take that weren't necessarily dangerous or necessarily irresponsible, but just might have been outside of my comfort zone, that I say do it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, you get a bit of a pass because I realized that when I started, you know, aging more, like becoming a real grown up, which I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really consider myself until I was about 40.
Well,
Which
Jane Mansell's 40s are the teenage years of adulthood.
are they? We'll see. I don't know. But
That's what she said.
I think why it was so depressing to me to turn 40 was just because I feel like you get a pass definitely in your 20s. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you make stupid mistakes, it's like, oh, they're young. You know, they're young. I do that. When I meet
Yeah.
someone who's in their mid 20s, they're like a baby to me. You know, it's like they don't know anything yet. They don't know a lot. I mean, they
Right.
know some stuff, but they don't really know a lot. And I remember I would get mad when people would think that about me when I was 25 because I thought I was so mature and
Right.
worldly when I was 25. But looking back, I realized I was not. And so I think you get a bit of a pass on doing stupid shit when you're young
Right.
that, you know, as you get older, you don't get a pass anymore. You know, I mean, when we hear about someone in the news who did something stupid or, you know, sexually harassed somebody or just did something highly offensive,
Mm-hmm.
they can't say, that they just did something stupid. It's like, but you're old enough to know better now,
Right.
right? I mean, don't we hear that expression? You're old enough to know better.
So do you think that you were depressed about turning 40 because you still wanted the pass? Like you still wanted the ability to make mistakes without judgment?
I think, I don't know. I think and we're going to talk about this. This is going to be a topic on a show one day,
Mm.
but I think the reason I had an issue turning 40 is because it didn't seem young anymore. And as we know, women are not allowed to age. We're not
No.
allowed. Well, you're not allowed to age and still be, attractive and sexy and vibrant and all those wonderful things, because men, and I'm generalizing, but men are, they're going to look at the 25-year-old, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's changing somewhat because 40 isn't what it used to be because of things like Botox.
Yeah.
And women are taking better care of themselves, I
Oh,
think,
for
now.
sure.
I mean, Jennifer Lopez is 50 and she looks stunning. So I think our ideas about aging are better than they used to
Mm.
be. But I think for me personally, that was my issue, was turning 40 was like, ugh, I guess I'm old now, you know. Um,
Can I share
yeah,
Flip's regret? Because this is a good one.
yeah,
So Flip is saying that he has only one regret, and that is that his father, my uncle, his father basically extended him the offer before he went away to college that said he could move to New York or LA or Nashville and pursue a career in music for 1 year. And Flip is a wonderful musician. And I remember growing up and listening to him play the guitar. And he was my super cool cousin. Um,
yeah.
and that if after a year he wasn't able to fully support himself as a musician, that he would just come back to school. And Flip, being super responsible, because I don't know a lot of people that would have passed that up, said, no, I'm just going to go ahead to school. I'm just going to go to college and I'll do the
Wow.
safe thing.
Flip, I would regret that too. But I have to say, I do believe that everything happens in your life the way that it's supposed to. It might sound a little woo-woo to some people, but I really do believe that. I believe that everything happens the way it's supposed to. Everything that you've gone through in your life has brought you to where you are now. And everything that is happening now in your life is leading you to where you're supposed to be next and preparing you for that. So maybe that just wasn't meant for him. Maybe there were just greater things for him elsewhere.
And if we're going to go with the theme of this apparent show, what if you would have moved to LA and become a crackhead? Like, who knows what would have happened in that year if you didn't go to school? And let's say you did move and try to be a musician. I do think that um, it's unfortunate that you didn't have confidence in your own talent as a musician. I think that that is unfortunate, but you don't know what would have happened if you
Yeah,
took him up on that offer and moved. And, I kind of think regret is a little bit of a wasted emotion. Like what does it really give to you? Sitting around regretting something, especially if you can't change it. If you can't go back and change that, you know, to sit back and regret anything is kind of a waste. I
I
think
agree. Because you
other
can't
than maybe
change it.
regretting how you treated someone, but then you go and apologize. Like, what else can you do?
Yeah. And, I think too, and I could be wrong. I don't want to speak for Flip. Maybe he can say whether I'm onto something or don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But when you start thinking about all the what ifs, I think you do that because you're not totally happy with what you have right now. Because
Yeah.
if you were, I don't think you'd be thinking about, oh gosh, well, if only I had, you know, gone to college for something different. If only I had gone to medical school like I wanted to, maybe things would be different now. What you really
Mhm.
mean is better. Maybe they'd be
Right.
better.
And
So,
why can't you go to medical school? I think that that's one of the things that always gets me about people when they go, I wish I would have done X. And it's something that they totally could do right now. Like, so what if you're 40 and starting medical school? Start medical school if that's what you want to do.
Well, a
Like,
lot
then
of people
pursue it.
think, no, I can't. I have a mortgage and kids and a wife or a husband, and they wouldn't understand and they wouldn't agree with that. And I can't, I can't, I can't. And I think as long as you always have those thoughts is no, I can't, I can't, I can't. If you're always finding the I can'ts, knock that off. You need to look for the why I can, because you can make it work. I absolutely firmly believe that if there's something you really want, there's a way. There just is. There's a way to do it. You just have to want it bad enough.
Lauren says that she would tell
Yeah.
herself to stop staying in relationships to avoid being alone and having to start over, and how she's happier now at 39 and single than she was at 29, clinging to the security of a boyfriend. You should have definitely listened to our show last week, Lauren.
I think Lauren did. She's my friend. Now
because
she's your friend, Robin.
We definitely got into all of that, but I do think that, that is really a good point to make to your younger self is, are you, I know I look back at relationships I had and I say, why did I waste so much time in that relationship when I knew that it was a relationship that didn't serve me,
Yeah.
But I think that really is a good point to make to our younger people who may or may not be listening, but that's definitely a conversation I would have about how are you really assessing your relationships. I know I had this conversation, and my niece is not 18, she's 13. Oof. But I know that there is an echo. Thanks, Dare.
Yeah,
we can't fix it.
We know there's a sound issue, so
we are having a sound issue today that we tried to fix, but neither of us are technicians of any sort. So we did our best. We did our best. But I was speaking with my niece who's 13, and I just kind of was uncomfortable with the friends that she had. Like, she kind of had like those, like, she was like in the cool kids, like the mean girls. And I was trying to explain to her how important it is to surround yourself with people that serve you and that are going to make you a better person and not a worse person. So if you're the school bully, that's not making you a better person. If you're in a group of kids that, talk down to people, or they're mean, or they make fun of people, that doesn't really serve you as a person. Or if you're around the people that aren't paying attention in class and think that, studying is stupid, how is that really going to serve you? So I think the lesson is a little bit more of paying attention to who you surround yourself with. And that's important. I think as adults, we surround ourselves a little bit more with people that serve us. Like, just kind of like you said.
Some people do. Some people do. I mean, I have friends and family members that talk about certain people that they hang around with, that they're exposed to a lot, and they complain so much, and I've done this myself. Yeah. They complain so much that you start to wonder, why do you talk to this person? Why is this person in your life? And very often the reason is, well, I've known her forever. So what? So what if you've known her forever? If that person isn't serving you anymore, it might be time to distance yourself. And I want to say too that, we can't be so preoccupied with not making mistakes, because that's how we learn. So if we didn't make those mistakes, right? Like, if I went back to my 18-year-old self and I didn't make the mistakes that I did make, well, then there would have been other mistakes that I made, and we'd just be having a different conversation right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what about career? I know that one person responded to me, and I don't know if it was a joke or not, but she said, well, I would have told my 18-year-old self, don't go to law school. So
I think there's a lot of unhappy lawyers.
I don't know if it's a lawyer thing or if it's a people thing. I think there are a lot of people that have chosen certain career paths and they realize that they're not happy in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that goes back to if you're doing something that no longer serves you or no longer makes you happy, then do something to change it rather than complaining about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I've spent a lot of time being unhappy being a divorce lawyer, and because I've done it for 16 years, and it just was time to change some things. So I did it slowly. I started by managing the firm instead of being so heavily involved in litigation. And I started a podcast and then another podcast. So yeah, I totally encourage people to explore. You don't have to quit your job. You can dip your toe in other things, find hobbies or go do something part-time, but the only way you're ever going to find that other thing that is your passion that you love is if you go try things.
Right. You have to diversify a little bit, even in life. Just, I mean, maybe that's a good conversation to have with your 18-year-old self, is to learn how to dip your toe into other things, to diversify your life a little bit.
Oh
I
yeah.
was so focused at 18 on law. I want to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to go to college, and then I go to law school, and then I practice, and that's what I'm doing. That, maybe doing a few other things. I'm not sure that I would have not been a lawyer. I think I still would have been a lawyer, but maybe trying some other things and saying, well, I like to write. So maybe I should, go out and write, or work for a newspaper and see how I like that, or do some journalism and see how I like that, or get into psychology and see how I like that,
Yeah.
just to try it out while you're young, so that, I've had the mindset since I was 7 years old. I want to be a lawyer. I've never deviated from that focus of I want to be a lawyer. And so I haven't really experienced trying anything else. Like, I speak to lawyers who are like, yeah, I was a chef at one point. And I'm kind of like, that's cool. I mean, it's cool that you
Yeah.
did something different.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you that if there was anything else you wanted to do, but I did interview you, so I kind of knew.
You kind of know
history. Yeah, I do. I wanted to be in publishing, magazine publishing.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, and still to this day, I'm obsessed with glossy fashion magazines. I absolutely love them. I love the photography.
Mm-hmm.
And I love just the layout and everything that goes into putting this final product together that we, women grab off the shelves to flip through.
Yeah.
I was always fascinated with that, still am. And I wanted to be on the editorial side of publishing. And I managed to get a job at it was Prime Media at the time. They published 17 magazine, which I'm so sad it's not in circulation anymore.
I loved 17 magazine.
No, I did too. I loved it. And I got this job working as an assistant to some higher up woman. I think she was the executive vice president of advertising. I don't know exactly what she was. She was horrible to work for.
Was it like The Devil Wears Prada? I love that movie.
I knew you were going to ask that. Not quite, but she didn't talk to me, and I was not supposed to be seen. So, because she had another assistant, and the things that I remember about the job, I had to get in before she got there, and I had to put all her vitamins on her desk. Like, there were a lot of them. I had to change out her phone charger. There were a couple other things I don't remember what they were, and I had to do all of this before she got there because she did not want to see me in her office doing them. Which I don't know.
That's weird. Extra. But it is Devil Wears Prada-ish.
I guess she kind of was. And after a while, so this is one little regret that I have. I was like, fuck this, this is bullshit. I don't want to work here. And I quit, and I only after a few weeks. And I sometimes look back on that and think, I really didn't make the best of that situation. I was in the door. I was there at 17. I should have just sucked it up, been her bitch for a little while, learn my way around, made friends with some people, in the offices, and got another job there.
But you were young.
Yeah, but alas, that's not what happened. And now here we are. So
Steve is asking, that we were both very focused at 18, and some of the things we're talking about is being so responsible and being, so focused at a young age of doing the right thing and being on the responsible path. And he's asking if you think that maybe men focus and mature a little bit later, that they're not as focused at 18 or through college. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm trying to think about some of my peers at that time, and if I
Yeah.
thought the guys were as focused as some of the women. Some were, some weren't.
Oh, my light went out.
That always like adds
There's
the
there's a timer on my light and it goes off because there's not enough movement.
it's ambiance. It's fine.
Yeah. No, we'll look forward to it now.
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I can't speak for what the hell men think about. I don't know.
Derek is saying he just wanted to drink and have sex at 18.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean,
but I think that what the difference is, I think women at 18 want to just drink and have sex too. We just tell ourselves we can't.
I think sex is and drinking and socializing and all that is much more important when you're in your 20s, because that's what else do you have? You've flown the coop. Even
Right.
if you live at home still with your parents still, you're more independent.
Right.
They're not hopefully telling you what to do every minute. So there's more independence. You're kind of finding yourself, and you don't have other obligations like a family to support and a full-time job and things like that. So what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, don't you remember being in college and we would just be going out at 11 o'clock at night to go to the bars? I forget that now. That is not happening. I'm in bed by 11.
I mean, I think there were times in college I was coming in from parties at the times that I like wake up now. Like I was coming in at like 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Like that's not when I get up and start my day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that most women have that slut complex, that slut issue. Unfortunately, I would love to just eradicate that because it's so ridiculous. But I think a lot of us, and probably women still today, I think so. I don't know. There's probably no 18-year-olds watching this right now. But I think as women, we were a little preoccupied with that, just, wanting to have sex, but being concerned about, well, what does that make me? Right? Who am I if I do that?
I feel like everything that we keep circling back to for this conversation with our 18-year-old selves is be a little bit more comfortable in being your authentic self. Like whoever you are at 18, even if that's not who you're gonna be, just be comfortable with that. And, try to be okay making some mistakes and, you don't have to be so perfect.
Yeah.
You have a lot of time to, I guess, strive to perfection. And at 18, like, who cares if you're perfect? Who cares if, you take the wrong classes or have the wrong major or try out a couple of different careers or even a couple of different guys, or maybe, past 18, you try out a couple of different husbands. Such is life. Like, it's okay.
Well, some people are doing that, Robin.
Oh, I know.
Well, yeah, and you know what? If we're saying this about our 18-year-old selves, we could be easily saying this about our 35, 40, 45, 50-year-old selves. You're not dead. You're still very much alive and you still have a life to live, and it just doesn't matter what age you are. I think that's what I've learned. I told you I had a hard time turning 40, but I've sort of gotten over it. I just want to live my life, and I don't care about rules and, oh, well, you're too old to do that. I just don't care. If I want to do it, I'm going to go for it because I'm still alive.
Yeah.
So as long as you're alive, do what you want to do.
I mean, that sounds like as good of ending advice as I've ever heard. As long as you're alive, just do what you want to do.
This is interesting. Steve Grossman says you would be surprised by how many young men were conscious of not taking advantage of young women, respecting them, for example, and not making them feel like sluts. Well, I'm very happy to hear that, Stephen. And I do think that there's a lot of good men out there who respect women. So I don't want to make it sound like the general consensus around here is that men are pigs.
I actually
Definitely
think
don't
that
think that.
most men respect women. I think that the pigs are the exception, not the rule. I mean, or at least those are the men I choose to surround myself with are the people who aren't pigs. But I think most of the guys that I know, they are very respectful and they don't, make women feel a certain way or slut shame. I remember having a conversation with a friend who was kind of like, you know, there was a woman who I guess had sex on the first date or whatever the case may be. And she's kind of like, oh, you probably look at me like a slut. And he was like, well, I had sex on the first date too. So if I'm looking at you like a slut, then I'm looking at me like a slut. Like it's not that double standard. And I think that guys are really evolving to feel that there really is no shame in you doing the things that you want to do. And they're not going to shame you for it.
Well, I
Or
think the
not shame
more
you if you don't want
evolved,
to do it, whatever it is.
yeah, I think the more evolved men, yes, think that way. But I heard a man sometime in the past year, and I wouldn't say he was the most sophisticated person I've ever met, but he was talking about how he met this woman. They went on a date and they had sex on the first date. And he just talked about her in such a disrespectful way and said that he wouldn't go out with her again. And I said, why? And he said, well, because she had sex with me on the first date. And I just thought that was so stupid. And,
It's a very
and
old school
like
mentality.
cavemanish.
It is cavemanish. It
Yeah.
is.
And I thought, okay, so she was good enough for you to have sex with, but she's not good enough for anything else. Like, what does that really say about you?
Well, that's because I think men kind of think back. Some men, I want to be very clear, some men, not all, do think that, kind of in that way of, well, it's our job to try to have sex and it's your job to stop me. Like that's just what it
I
is.
know, but that's so ridiculous, so antiquated.
Very antiquated. And I think that we are moving away from that. But I do think a lot of people still have that mentality of like, well, of course, if you're giving it, I'm going to take it. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm going to respect you for giving it. I'm just going to take it because you were giving it. But, as opposed to looking at it as like, well, you were giving it too. So, doesn't that make you put you in the same category? Or shouldn't I feel that same level of disrespect for you if, how do you know? Maybe I'm a little bit of a sexual predator. Maybe I'm out there just looking for guys that are willing to give it up. I don't know. And maybe I'm looking at you like, well, you were willing to give it up, so I'm going to take it. Like it sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Flip says something interesting. A lot of men have the conqueror mentality. If the goal is met, there's no thrill in the chase afterwards. I think that's true. And, I've read a lot of articles from very educated scientists who've done research on these topics about the brain and, evolution. And the explanation that I've heard, which you've probably heard too, is that it comes from an evolutionary standpoint that men wanted to spread their seed, anywhere and everywhere to propagate. And women, because we're historically dependent on men, we need them to love us, to be committed to us, to take care of us so that we can take care of our babies. That just doesn't exist anymore. That's not our world anymore.
It's not. But you also look at too, if you're just looking at promiscuity, without all of the technology that we have now to stop conception. But if you're a woman and you're promiscuous, you're kind of laid up for 9 months after that. Like you can't just go around in the streets and continue to be promiscuous, whereas men kind of can.
Well, you could.
You could. You
wouldn't have to worry about getting pregnant.
Well, and that's a plus. That's a definite plus. I actually was reading a book that was talking about, some society, and I wish I could remember where this was or what country this was in, or even what decade this was, but that the women, that when they would get pregnant in that particular culture, that any man that she had sex with after being pregnant was also responsible for that child. So she would purposely have sex with as many men as possible so that she can have multiple supporting sources for that child. And then when the child was born, they would alert, like she would say, I've had sex with 5 men during this pregnancy. And they would alert all 5 men and they would say, you have a son, all 5 of them. It didn't matter
Wow.
who was the originating, conceiver, I guess, so to speak. It didn't matter. All 5 of them were responsible for that child.
That is so weird.
And
And
that's
I know it comes from historically too. It's comes from an inheritance standpoint where men wanted to know that they had fathered the child,
yeah,
right? So because they owned their women, they owned
yeah.
their wives, and they wanted to be sure that that was their child so that that child could inherit the estate.
Well, in that particular culture, all of those families were responsible for that child. So that child could then get inheritance from multiple people. And that's actually funny. It is, when it says it takes a village, in that same book, they were actually talking about, when, different various cultures were, different things were happening, and that, for women, promiscuity wasn't necessarily frowned upon, and that it really did take a village, because the reality was nobody in the village really knew whose child it was, because she could have slept with anybody in the village.
Yeah.
So it was, and it wasn't frowned upon if she did. So it really did take a village to raise the child, because they were like, we don't really know whose kid it is.
The
So
only thing about that is, how would you make sure that they weren't committing incest?
oh,
Because
I
you
don't
don't
think in that
want,
particular
siblings.
culture it mattered.
Oh, okay.
I
But
think,
but from a genetic standpoint, it's not good to be too close to the tree.
well, this was very long ago. So at that point, if they were to birth a child that may not have had the genetic disposition they wanted, that child was probably just left somewhere.
Ooh, okay.
So this was not in anywhere close to modern times that
Yeah.
this was happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we've come to the end of our conversation. Do you want to share, one last, I guess, sentiment, like an overall sentiment from your youth? You're still young, so when you were in your 20s, like, is there one thing that you would tell young Robin?
I think if there's one thing that I would tell young Robin, it's that you need to be who you are, because whoever that is okay.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
love that. That's good advice. And still, again, this is still applicable today, right?
Right.
Tell that to your 40-year-old self.
Right.
Whisper it
And
to
I think
her.
at 40, when at 50 or whatever the case may be, I'm probably going to be saying the same thing to my 40-year-old self, is whoever you were, or at 40 is fine. Just be who you are and be comfortable in that.
Yeah. Derek says, why is this conversation turning to men bashing? I don't think we're men bashing
I don't
at
think so
all.
too. I think maybe we should address why you're feeling that way. Maybe psychologically you're feeling bashed. I don't know that this is men bashing. I think that we were responding to a comment about whether men mature faster. We were saying not, or slower. I think we said not necessarily. And I think that we're talking to our young selves, and part of our young selves are the way that men treat us. That's our experience. But
Yeah.
if you had an experience of, feeling like maybe women treated you in a certain way, we would be open to that comment. I mean, we're closing the show, so not opening this one, but come on another show and comment
Yeah. Maybe we
about,
should have you can make some suggestions for future topics on the
yes,
show.
yes,
But thank you guys for being so engaged. We appreciate that.
we
And
do.
yeah, so we'll be here every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can catch the podcast, because we repost this as a podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We're still waiting to be posted on Apple, but that will happen soon.
Hey, Apple, get your shit together and post us.
Yeah, come on, Apple. You're missing out. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will see you next week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. You've been watching the Shit Talking Podcast. Thank you. Have a good
Have a
night.
great week.